All right, so we are live. Afternoon. Some of you have seen me 2 times today. How lucky are you? So let's get the admin sorted as usual. I want to make sure that I see all of your questions popping on through here. So for those of you who have reached out to make sure you don't miss today's session, well, you're in for a treat, and this hopefully is going to clarify, answer any worries or concerns that you've got going on around homeschooling, education, unschooling, whatever term that you're using at the moment. We can discuss all of them, and Tamara is well versed on all of it, and I'll introduce you to Tamara very, very soon. So, Tamara. Tamara, here she is, Tamara Kidd. So Tamara has had about 16 years experience homeschooling, so her own children. Now, Tamara was a primary school teacher in the beginning. All right, so we've got a lot of different views, which is going to be really beneficial today. So we've got from a teaching perspective. Then we've got Tamara became a parent and just decided that maybe schooling wasn't really the right fit. And that's when Tamara started looking at homeschooling and unschooling options. And now this year is the final year that Tamara has got a homeschooling her children. So this is a big year for you, Tamara. So yes. Welcome, Tamara. Thank you so much for being here and being willing to, I guess, put a lot of parents' minds at ease and answer any confusing questions that we've got. Hello.
That's what I do. That's what you do. I take stress off people's shoulders, apparently. That's the feeling people have. So let's see if we can do it here.
Yeah, let's do it here.
That's my intention.
So for those of you jumping on, let us know who's watching. Say hi. Welcome. Karen, you made it.
Good work. You made it, Karen. Awesome. How's the dog walk?
Yeah.
Cool.
So Tamara, I guess I'd love, we already discussed this, but if there's any other street cred that we need to share with everybody so that they know what they can ask and where your information is coming from, if there is anything else, then go for it. You've had 16 to 20 years in this business. So if there's anything else, then let us know. Let us know now.
Let's see. There's my qualifications up on the wall there. So I'm postgrad qualified educator, and I've taught in primary schools, I've taught in Montessori preschools, I've taught in high school for like reading recovery and different things, and going into special ed. My aunt's profoundly deaf, so I know Auslan, so I've done a lot of work with disabilities and a lot of involvement with the NDIS because of that, and also working with families with children with disabilities. And I've also worked in the university sector as a sessional academic, so marking trainee teachers, uni papers, all the way through to running some winter classes in gifted and talented education and 2E. And also my research background for my postgraduate was in comparative and international education. So my focus in that was school systems, but it was also in home education and unschooling and the worldwide movement, the global movement of home education. And I guess my window into it is not looking at home education just as a parent, which I have, like as a parent making that decision and having all those fears, and what about socialization and finding out, answers to questions and setting up a homeschool room and all that sort of stuff, all the way through to looking at the history of this movement and who's been involved with it, and especially in Australia, being very involved with the people here with the home education research, and looking at how home education is different in Australia compared to America, for example, and how it's more similar to the UK, and far too much. And then I've spoken to probably a few thousand parents one-on-one, and I've met over 10,000 parents who home educate or use distance education. So quite a lot.
Yeah, there's enough street cred there. There's enough street cred.
A lot. So, 70 hours a week volunteering, supporting people, just heaps.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. So I guess let's start with what you're noticing at the moment. Let's talk about the current climate in parents exploring homeschooling or unschooling. Just because a lot of people don't necessarily have a support system around them when they're thinking about homeschooling. It could be a very weird or unusual concept to maybe our own parents or even our friends that have children. So I guess to take that fear away and to have people know they're not alone in this. It's
Oh
still
yeah, you're so
valid
not alone.
concept.
Welcome
It's
to the
still
community.
worthwhile. Yeah.
It's a
So
global
what are you
community.
noticing at the moment?
I'm noticing at the moment the impact of the isolation in general for everybody has impacted the experience of home education. So home education in normal times is incredibly social, very active. Your local meetup groups happen. There's, even if you are a little bit far away, like you need to get in the car and drive to your local meetup, there's the regularity of having a weekly meetup or every 2 weeks, even for an isolated. There's availability to access people, even if it's once a month, even if you go on the homeschool camps and then you keep connections with those homeschooling families through the year online. There's always opportunities to connect. But in Newcastle, where I am, we'll have 3 to 5 things per day you could go to. Like, it's a very, very big group. And when I first started, there was only about 60 or 70 families, and now there'd be over 1,000 families. So it's exploded. There's about a dozen different meetup groups. It used to be just one. So I've seen over my time, I've seen an explosion, but right now, massive explosion. And there's this new cohort in who aren't choosing home education for our traditional reasons, where my child's getting bullied at school, or they're not learning or progressing, or they've got health issues that we need to address. We need to prioritize family. We're traveling, doing it for religious reasons, which is a minority of people do it for that reason, but it's still there. So we've got this new cohort who are proactively going, hang on a minute, we did this remote learning. It was a struggle with the school. How about we just not do that this year? How about we reset the family and get things back on track and get the children up to speed and just not have the school interference, because there is a community that can support us. We have got access to resources and ideas and activities. And, anytime I think, how do I teach this thing? I've got a whole community of thousands of people I can access to say, how do you do it? And they'll share resources. And there's so much free stuff out there that really financially, the one thing I have seen is a big upsurgence in people creating packages and curriculums to sell online. So there is a big push for sales, and that's a big, a lot of us more experienced homeschoolers, you don't have to buy anything, really, wait, because like what you said this morning, when children, how do you get children to listen to you? You listen to them. And how do you get children to learn? You find out how they learn. You find out what they want. You observe. You take your cues from them. That's how you home educate. You don't know. You certainly don't need to start by buying a curriculum.
Okay. So I think we'll definitely need to tackle that.
That's a lot. Sorry.
Tomorrow, definitely. So I think what I'd like to go back to, because you said something where, one of the fears, I think, and I've heard parents share this, is, well, do I know enough? Am I going to be able to teach my child in the way that's required, so that I don't ruin their future, that I don't ruin any chances of them being successful and really good at what they want to be good at? Or, we're always worried about the future, that worry, not being good enough, not being smart enough ourselves to then teach children. So how do you navigate that when that's what parents come to you with, that big fear?
Okay, so where this is coming from is actually our own schooling. We go to school and we think that teachers know everything, especially when we're little. We think that the teacher knows all the answers, and it's not true. If you go into a staff room, I love my profession, and I'm 100% committed to it. That's why I've spent 26 years of my life in formal training. I'm very committed to the cognitive process, the learning process, the actual thing that children do to learn things. And because of that, I have a more critical look at teaching, which is the pedagogy, the actual art and science of teaching. And because of my Montessori background, part of that is leave your ego at the door. When you observe a child learning, you realize that the teacher, they might set up the environment, but anyone else can walk in and do the same job. Now, the person who's going to be the best fit for your individual child is going to be the person that knows your child best. Not someone who's had 40 years training and knows how to deliver a program, but someone who actually knows your child best. That's at the end of the day, teachers can't compete with that. We think that teachers are better qualified to teach our children. What they're qualified in is delivering a curriculum. And if you spend a little bit of time with a community and reading through the actual curriculum, you realise most of us did 13 years of this curriculum already. Yeah. Most of us went to school. Most of us have actually learnt this curriculum. Like it's not rocket surgery, you know. It's pretty simple and it's following instructions. If you can follow a recipe, you can learn to follow the curriculum. So a lot of what we actually learn as teachers is behaviour management of large groups. When you've got your family and you're connected and you've got good communication and you're listening to them and they're listening to you and you have that going on, but that is the fundamental basis of home education, is communication. A lot of what we learn through everyday home educating is actually real life, having conversations. We'll watch a documentary, we'll discuss it, we'll reflect on it, we'll go and have an excursion and we'll discuss matters that are happening in the world. There is reading, there is writing, there is maths, there's all that sort of thing, but it becomes part of everyday life. And we don't approach it the same way as we would have to if we had a whole cohort of same age people sitting down and having to do work for 5 hours a day. Like you take lunch and recess out, you've got 5 hours of having to sit down and do work, whether that lesson is appropriate for that child at that time or not, whether they're interested in it or not. Like the more you look into it, the more critical you will be of the school system. So that's my little warning, my caveat is that if you go down this path, you might not ever go back to using school. But part of what you're talking about of how you get over that fear is to de-school. And that's the process of no longer thinking that it needs to look like school in order for it to be learning. And that's when you realize that actually the family culture and listening to the child and the child wanting to learn is that's the nugget. If the child wants to learn, there's nothing stopping them. You know, the only thing stopping them is you with a book saying, okay, now we need to sit down and do 30 minutes of maths. It's like, curriculum.
Yeah.
No. The switch around when you de-school is that when the child is learning, you go, oh my goodness, you are doing this thing, which I can now look at and say, yes, that's in the curriculum at this area. And if you're unbounded by the school system's lockstep, kindergarten, then year 1, then year 2, and you have a look at the entire kindergarten to year 12, if your child's doing Minecraft, there's guaranteed they're going to be covering about 4 different stages of the New South Wales curriculum and about 6 different levels of the Australian national curriculum. So
Jesus, who would have thought that? Not me. Not me.
There's parts of the curriculum that are covered by Minecraft. And it's gotten to the point where teachers have professionalized it and they've done research on it and published papers on it. And they have created there's an education version of Minecraft. And that was quite a while ago that the creators of Minecraft brought out an education version because schools were asking for it because they could see the value in it. Teachers can see it.
Yeah, every child was addicted and obsessed and probably still is. So it makes sense.
Well, there was like a real backup about it. And then teachers who are a bit more with it and funky and like want to still keep connected with children, they don't want to be the authority out the front. They actually are they're more interested in the learning than the teaching. That's the difference. They were having a go with Minecraft and went, oh, there's a lot of science in this. There's a lot of maths in this.
Sure, it's actually working.
There's coding in this.
So Tamara, I guess with the having different expectations of school versus homeschool, unschooling, deschooling, the terms that you're using. So one of the biggest questions that I've had, and we'll go through some of the ones that you've all given me, is, well, how many hours a day do you sit down at a table and learn, right? And let's just talk about, I know you've just mentioned it doesn't need to look like that we sit down at a table and we're looking at a textbook, but is that necessary at all? How many hours a day do you focus on some maths, some English, some learning? What does that look like for you? What has that looked like for you over the 16 years? And what do you see with the people around you? And that's approved, that's suggested, that's a safe amount of time per day.
Yeah, so what will happen when you first initially start home educating is that you will tend to copy what happened at school. So you'll sit down and do some work, and that will take you about oh, if the kids are not really wanting to follow your instructions because you're telling them what to do and they don't feel listened to, it'll take you 3 hours max before everyone's sort of pulling their hair out and just wants to leave the table.
Yeah. Sure.
But you will get through, if you actually had a teacher give you a week of actual what they would have in a classroom, you know, a full lesson plan, follow the recipe. It will take a teacher at best with no interruptions, without any catastrophes happening at school. It will take them the entire week that they might get through it all. For you, it would take roughly half the time. And as time goes on, it takes about a third of the time. You can get your English and maths, which is the literacy and numeracy part of it, is the most important for sit down stuff. All the rest can be done through everyday living. But the actual skills of handwriting and the skills of working out sums and skills of that sort of thing, and sitting down doing algebra and trigonometry, like going all the way through, not just kindergarten, but all the way through to high school. The sitting down stuff takes about 20, 30 minutes for each of literacy and numeracy a day. Don't do it every day, have a day off so you can fit in all the social stuff. In normal times, we would socialize pretty much every other day. We'd be hanging to get home to get some like sit down work done, because we're out all the time in the world and doing excursions with people and meetup groups and ice skating, and there's horse riding, there's archery, there's like everything.
Oh,
but
that sounds good.
It is. It's a really great lifestyle. I'm not going to kid anyone. It's a sacrifice and it's a time commitment, but I will never regret it. Like, as a parent, I have this beautiful relationship with adult children. We've got all this shared history now. So all these experiences we've had. And travel, you know, travel while school's on, it's cheaper and you can learn so much. So to sit
definitely
down
a pro.
To sit down and actually force your children to learn, like, it'll take as long as your frustration levels will, you know, handle. And then you turn into what exactly you were talking about this morning, which was observe your children, listen to your children, respect their voices. And when they're asking you a question and they're really interested in the answer and you deliver that answer, that's going to hit them where they're at. And that neural pathway will develop. And you'll soon realize that really only about 3 to 5 new neural pathways really can happen per day on that level. So your sit down work ends up being, it's not about the worksheet getting done, it's about the concept getting learned, it's about the mastery, it's about the skill. Have they learned the skill enough to practice on their own? Have you presented the work that's available to them to go to work on when their inspiration comes? So when they're thinking, I really want to practice my name, you know, when they're a little kid, do you have the materials on a shelf for them to go and choose that activity whenever that muse strikes them? Sorry, just water.
That's okay. And for me, I feel like that's where the real strengths are, Tamara. So if you've got your child home every day, you've got ultimate control, which means you get the best chances of them learning whatever concept, because you'll know when they're really interested in it during that day. You know, whereas at school, like what you were saying, there's no option there. So whether or not little Billy feels like maths in the morning or the afternoon, if he's got maths midday, it doesn't matter. He's got to do it then. And he might only like maths in the morning. So then that's ultimate freedom, and it serves them so much better.
And to de-school, to de-school is to recognize that the way the school does it is not optimal. And if you're a teacher, it will take you twice as long to de-school, because you're fighting against the thing that you spent so many years pouring your heart into. And you have to, I'm sorry, I love you, my comrades, but this is the best teaching gig ever, because you get to actually get the child learning what they're interested in, when they're interested in it, at the level they're interested in. It's one-on-one. It's the best tutoring gig you'll ever have. Terrible pay. The super is awful, but it is a big sacrifice. But it's so worth it, because like it's pretty much the only way that you can guarantee that your child will have exactly the education that matches their individual needs. And for anyone with a teaching background or a special ed background or anything like that, the individual education programs, the individual education plans, the IEPs that are often written for children with disabilities and special needs, is that that's the kind of targeted approach that we have with home education, except you're writing the plan with the child, so it's co-created, and also it's modified on a day-to-day basis as their needs change. So you might say, all right, you need to work on maths, You need to work on, let's just say, pick an easy one for people to resonate with, like times tables. You need to actually memorize times tables. So we're going to do some games on times tables. We're going to do some, we'll do all these activities, and you'll think about all these different ways to do it. And we're going to do this for 20 minutes a day for the next 5 weeks. And then 3.5 weeks in, you've only used half the materials and the child's already mastered it. So you change your plan.
Yeah.
And
okay.
you've got that flexibility to change the plan as the needs change.
Yeah, incredible. Okay, that makes total sense. That's a real pro. That's amazing. So I guess let's do some of these questions, Tamara. There's a lot of questions that we want to get through. This is just so great to have this opportunity. So I guess one of the big ones that came through, Tamara, was around social skills. Okay, this seems to be a common one, and I know you probably get it too, is how can we be sure that there's enough social interaction and that my child's social skills won't be horrible, they don't develop enough? I mean, you know what I'm asking, you probably get asked all the time. So what advice do you give to these parents when that question pops up? I
can be so cheeky about this answer because it comes up all the time, and it's like, often I get asked this while my children are with me and we're at a shopping centre. They're going, how come your child, you're having the day off school? And my children will say, no, we're homeschooled. Or we don't go to school, or we don't use a school. And they'll say, oh, you're homeschooling, aren't you worried about socialization? And I'm like, dude,
that's the biggest question.
We're at a shopping centre socially interacting right now, and you're talking to me and ignoring the children.
Okay,
why aren't you asking them? Why are adults socialized not to treat children like humans? That concerns me more.
Sure.
So as a teacher and a parent, so looking at from both perspective, the question's always asked because we think all children go to school. So if your children are not at school, they're not going to be mixing with other children. So how do you make that happen? Now that's just a, do they never play after school? Do they never play on the weekend? Do they never have holidays? Of course they're going to see other children. Now that's just their school friends, their school using friends. They'll see them after school on the weekends in holidays. And my children had friends that used schools, and they always kept up socially with them anyway. Then there's the socialization of their home ed buddies, which would happen in a different way than a schoolyard experience. So this is the best way to explain about how socialization happens. Now, it's all of us are suffering at the moment socially because of the isolations and the everything. So this is not advice for these times. This is in our normal times, but we've made modifications to make things happen during this time anyway. We've got a lot of online social stuff happening. In normal times, what happens is you go to a park meetup or an activity, and it usually goes anywhere from 2 hours to 5 hours. And the children find people that they really resonate with, they've got common interests with. They ignore the ages often. They're multi-age. They usually hang in a group of multi-age, their siblings as well. And if anybody behaves anything like you get away with on the playground, people look at you and go, hang on, are you okay? Are you chill? Are you all right? Are you like stressed out or something? Is there something going on? And those sorts of emotional dysregulation things are dealt with in real time. And if the person needs a parent, they're really stressing out, there's a mum just down, on the park bench. So things get dealt with in real time in a way that helps children learn that they need to be responsible for their behaviour and how they show up. Other people respond to them accordingly. And it's the same sort of socialization that adults have when they meet up and they meet a new person. Like, hi, how are you? What's your name? What do you do? What's your background? What are your interests? It's exactly the same. It just happens to be, child-based kind of activities a little bit more. But, I did some paper craft yesterday. I do fun things still too. They have general interest that they're researching. Usually home educating students have a lot of time to, so they often talk about, I'm making a cosplay costume. They'll show pictures on their Instagram of what they're doing, and they'll share and they'll talk, and they have interest in each other, deep interest. They care about each other. And what ends up happening is that the children don't get away with malarkey. They don't get away with bad behaviour. It gets addressed appropriately in a community supportive kind of way, not in a reprimanding discipline way. It's supportive. They tend to not rebel against their parents because they tend to be listened to. So we don't have a lot of teenage rebellion. We have teenagers acting like young adults. And what my daughter, who's turning 21 in March, she said the experience allowed her to land very softly into adulthood. She's seen a lot of her friends who've used schools need to sort of unravel themselves the first 2 years after high school because they've gone through such a stressful experience. And they've gone from going all the way up to 17 and 18, still needing to ask permission to use the bathroom in front of everybody, and stuff like that. And it's just been an unnatural development. It's been a prolonged childhood.
Okay.
Got it. Socialization happens all the time in home ed. You're in the real world.
I think we've just got this dominant construct that it needs to happen at school on a playground, and that's the only time that we develop schools, when in actual fact, when you've got your family friends over and they've got kids, or even when you've got your own friends and they don't have kids, your children get a chance to chat to adults. That's still socialization. We've got communication happening, and we also need to remember that children are learning through observation as well. So how you interact with your friends as a parent, what they see in the world around them with adults interacting, even on TV, and that's depending on what you're watching, it may or may not be ideal.
There's a lot less segregation. There's a lot less segregation. I think that's one of the key things is that when you socialise, it's an integration into society. And in a school environment, the children are segregated into same age allotments, and they go through a process of lockstep. And often the infants can't play with the primary. Depending on the size of the school, they might have chopped up. I know one primary school close to where I am have got so many students that they've got 2 recesses and 2 lunch times to stagger the children. So there's children going to the same school but never see each other. So and the hierarchy of it is that the adults are in charge of the children, whereas in home education there's a gradation. There's a birth to great grandparent who's turned up, and everybody is part of the community. That's why I say welcome to the community, because it's and I've got friends who are Facebook friends with me who are in their mid-20s to late 20s, who I met when they were children, and they were home educating. So,
Perfect. Thank you for answering that. That's a really, really important piece. So that's great. Let's go to question number 2 now. So I've had, can you do homeschooling and have a business at the same time? Have you seen it work? Have you seen it? Are there any challenges? Are there pros and cons? What have you seen? What have you experienced?
Challenges, more opportunities, because your children don't need to be dropped off at school and picked up, so you get a lot of time. The children have access. If you're running a business online, especially, you have children can access you at any time, especially if you've got some sort of delayed response kind of thing with your business. So I run a business called Tutor Your Own Child, where originally I designed it to help parents learn how to tutor their own children so they didn't have to pay for a tutor, because I can show you how to read a curriculum. I can show you how to support your child. $50 1 hour, done. You don't need an ongoing tutor if you're accessing a school. And then I found myself in this world, and I thought, well, home education is more like tutoring. It's not like teach your own child. It is more like tutoring. You're coming underneath and supporting your child. So it still fits. And I do consults where people book, so I know in advance, and then I can tell my children I've got an appointment at 2:00. I won't be available. If it's an emergency, please come get me. Otherwise, I'll be out at 3. Or I do it in a way that they can still see me and access me. And often, like if it's an emergency, they'll just send me a message and I can see it pop up on the screen. Like, you work out a way to make that work with your children, especially as they're older. If you need your children taken care of while you work, home education works really, really well, because you don't have to do it between 9 and 3. You can home educate whenever they're ready. And if they're teenagers, they usually study better in the evenings. So you can work all day, and when you come home, do the home ed. I've seen co-parents doing it very, very well, where one parent will work 3 days, the other parent will work 3 days, the family gets together one day, and they're both sharing the home education. There's a lot of ways to do it, but in general, the only challenges really are time management and being very clear with your business, with what you actually want to do, so that you can just put it to the side and enjoy the fact that you're home educating. But yeah, I've seen it work really, really well.
Yeah. So would you say, Tamara, that it's, depending on the age of the child, so let's say we're doing it from age 5, doing homeschooling from 5, which I know some parents are watching are considering it from that age. It's practice, right? We've got a new routine, a new structure, and we've never had 5-year-old little Billy home every single day for 5 days, watching mum work, watching that routine, knowing that, well, it's not a weekend and you don't have unlimited access to mum or dad. We've got a weekday now, and it's going to look a little different from here on out. So it seems like it would just be some practice and some getting used to these new structures and routines.
Yeah, and it's about that structure and routine, and you need to be explicit and talk with your children about it. You can't impose the system on your child. That's how schools run. And sure, if you want to put that pressure on your family and enjoy that stress, go for it. But what most of us find after the first 2 years is the school at home approach stops working, because you don't have, put your hand up if you want to change your home into a school. Like, I enjoyed leaving school. I'm a teacher, but I enjoy leaving school. I certainly don't want to run my family that way. So if you include your children in the process of working out some sort of structure, if they've chosen the activity, if they've chosen the rule, if they make the rule themselves, they're going to follow it. So exactly what you always say with all of your talks, really respecting that human. And it doesn't matter if they're 3 or 5, you can sit down and say, let's think about, when do you want mummy? When do you want mummy to sit down and do work with you? Would you like it in the morning or in the afternoon? Make it really simple. Sure. And they say morning after breakfast. Let's sit down every morning. My time is with you. I'll do my business in the afternoon when you're playing, or when this show is on, or when you're doing this activity. You can have your iPad time when I'm doing my on computer time, and we can work next to each other.
Sure.
You work out a system with your children that's going to fit in time-wise, and do it in chunks. Don't expect that you are able to work for 6 hours straight or 5 hours straight. You do it in chunks. You do it in 1 hour, 2 hour allotments, depending on the age of your children. By the time they're teenagers and they're, editing a film for 8 hours straight, I have to go and tap on his door and say, have you eaten?
That's right. Yeah, have you eaten? Exactly. Yeah.
You're hyper-focused. How's that going for you? He's like, oh, grumbly. Like, So, I'm still home educating, quite frankly. 17-year-old, very independent, cooks his own food, has been washing his own clothes since he was 11, very independent person, but still in there doing stuff with him.
Of course.
You work it out with your children, and it's got to be age appropriate, and the more you listen to them, the more they'll listen to you. So be part of it. What our choices was a meeting every Monday where we would set up the week, and then they knew when we were going out, what we were doing, when they had time to do their projects, and they would then be able to plan out their week better. They knew that they were going to see people on Friday, so they went, I don't need to check in with that person because I'll see them on Friday. They knew that I was going to have appointments all Wednesday afternoon. So they went, okay, I'm going to make sure I have my project time, or I'm going to shut my bedroom door when I use the sewing machine, or, just appropriate choices.
Yeah, perfect. That's a great idea. Thanks, Tamara. The next question that we've got it's a pretty interesting one. So I'm interested to hear what you say about this. So does it affect university enrollments, homeschooling? No. Because no. Okay. It's a simple no. No.
It's actually, you're at an advantage if you step out of the school system. So the K-12 program that schools run is a course, just the same as you sign up to, a local community college. You might get a bit of paper out of it. You go to TAFE or university, you sign up to a course and you'll get a bit of paper at the end. Secondary schools offer a program which goes for 13 years and you get a bit of paper at the end. by choosing to get out of that corridor where the door starts at kindergarten, you don't get a bit of paper. You get a bit of paper at year 10 sometimes, but it's a Cert 2 level at TAFE equivalency. If you leave at year 11, it's a Cert 3 equivalency if you get a bit of paper for it. And then the HSC is a Cert 4. It's a Cert 4 in tertiary preparation. If you are in New South Wales and you're 15 and you're registered for homeschooling, you can enter the Smart and Skilled TAFE courses for free, where you can do a Cert 2, Cert 3, Cert 4. At 15, you can do a Cert 4.
Okay.
Or a Cert 3 and then a Cert 4. My daughter graduated before she was 17. She had a diploma.
Okay.
So no, it doesn't affect your tertiary. You get in a different way. You basically just leave that secondary school program for what they offer. It's almost like going to a restaurant and ordering a meal. There's other restaurants. You can go and order different meals. You can go and get food a different way. There's other places to get it. You don't have to go to a school in order to get that bit of paper. You can go somewhere else and get another bit of paper to go to university. Open universities are a great way to start university. You do some courses online. Once you pass them and prove to universities that you can handle that level work, then you can go into a program. I've seen children as young as 13 start Open University because they were ready for it. And I've seen people 18 graduate with degrees.
Yeah. So, wow. Okay. So we're looking at the worrisome impacts, but we're also missing out on, well, it could be that huge opportunity, as you say.
There's a lot more opportunities.
If they're ready, they're interested, and they love learning, then they can go on and already start to learn more and more in these diplomas or degrees what they're really interested in. So they could be starting earlier.
Absolutely. And if you yourself, anyone listening, or you know someone who's got a teenager who's really not coping well at school, but they're really interested in something, find a TAFE course in that. You don't need to homeschool for ages to do this. You can just go ahead, register for homeschooling, apply to TAFE, go to TAFE. You've got the registration certificate. You've left the school system. You're responsible for their education. So legally you're covered. You don't even need to worry about a school then. You just enroll straight into TAFE, and then that child is then going to TAFE, doing the thing that they really like in an environment where they're treated differently than school. They're in an environment which is more adult-like. It's more, they're responsible for their own learning a little bit more. They're starting to get on with their life. If they're at school and they're being held back by the stress of it all, how is that serving them, you know?
Yeah, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, great. Okay, that's really handy to know. So with let's go, so you said register for distance ed, Tamara. So
enroll in distance education.
Enrolling, so if parents are looking at this option, is that literally it's a website and you enroll? What's involved in the enrollment? Is there a cost? Is there, what details are needed? Do you need to hand over your passport? What are we looking at?
In Queensland, I think you've got correct me if I'm wrong, like a dozen, 15, and there seems to be more every day, distance education providers. There's a lot of choice in Queensland. In New South Wales, you only have two choices with distance education. It's the public education system where you have to prove that it's medically necessary. It's really hard to get into, and usually you have to put up with a whole bunch of, years of having to attend school to prove that school doesn't work before the school will do it. There's a government pushback on it because it's about 8 times more expensive than a day-to-day schooling because of the level of teacher one-on-one.
Sure.
So, I've been told it's 8 times. I don't know. That's what the Department of Education person told me. So and they like to put you back into school after 2 years. They don't like you to do it for more than 2 years. So it's a very hard thing to get into. And if it works for family, great. More often than not, it doesn't work for families. Distance education through the public education system is worse than the remote learning. So it can be good. It can be great when you've got a great teacher and works one-on-one with the student. They're doing really well.
So can I just interrupt there with you, Tamara? So I want to make sure I'm clear in case anybody else has these questions. So because there's different terminology, right? So let's get clear on the terminology, because I think there's different options then. So distance education is
school.
It's still when you've got teacher support within the school. Yeah. Okay, got it. So
Distance
that's one option. That's why it's hard to
public
get into, and that's why
Okay. So public one is very hard to get into in New South Wales. In Queensland, it's I don't think it's as hard, but it's still hard. But private,
Okay.
It depends on their numbers. I know some people have closed their books already for the private ones. There's only one private provider in New South Wales. There's a lot more in Queensland. But the home education unit in Queensland and NESA in New South Wales, because this is most of the people listening are either in New South Wales or Queensland, but every state and territory has their own regulations. Home education is when you choose, or homeschooling is when you choose to take on the responsibility of overseeing the education. Distance education is enrollment in a school program where somebody else is overseeing the program.
Okay, got it. So what's the difference with that enrollment, Tamara?
The enrollment into distance education it depends on
the homeschooling.
That's the registration.
That option.
So there's basically all children in Australia need to be on a registry list of where they are attending, where they're getting their education. The registry list just stays as a registry list. If you want the school to put your child on a registry list, you enroll them in their program and they'll register your child on that list. So your action as a parent is enrolling the child. The school registers the program, the school, and they'll register the names and a registry list, just like a bridal wedding present registry list, for example. Congratulations.
That sounds fun. Thank you.
So that's what we're doing with our children. We're putting them on a list. We're putting them on a registry list.
Okay.
When we home educate, we do it ourselves. We just apply to the actual body that has the list. And then the distance education, we're enrolling them into a program, enrolling them into a school, and they put them on a list. There's a lot of confusion about this term at the moment, and I'm really glad that you brought it up, because it's us homeschoolers are so frustrated at the moment. There are a lot of people providing private curriculum packages through their own businesses, and they're not authorized registration body. They're not like they are not a registration body. They are not a registered school that you can enroll a child into and then the child is on a registry list. They're just a business selling products, which can work for your children or not work for your children. Ask your child. Don't ask me. Ask your child if they want to do that work. I'm not about to say that one is better than the other at all. I would just say do the free trial. You don't want to be spending hundreds of dollars on something that your children hate and that you regret buying. You know, $400 for a program is a weekend away for a family in a cabin at a caravan park, you know. So
and I think at the beginning you were saying because the homeschooling support, right, or the support in that is free.
Yeah,
that's what you mentioned
it's
at
all
the
free.
start. Yeah,
I volunteer still, you know.
Yeah, okay. So literally, if I was to go jump online and Google right now, I want to start homeschooling my child, what's the first website that I need to punch in? What is it?
Well, that's a difficult question to answer, because it used to be one group, but I don't promote them anymore because no. So the home education unit in Victoria, based in Victoria, is actually national. They've got a really great organisation as far as support, information, research. They've got a magazine, they've got a membership, they'll cover you for work experience, insurance. It's only $25 a year. They're great. They're very, they're not politically motivated. They're very friendly. That's a really good one. But the best, honestly, the best people that you can go to is the registration body for your state or territory, because they are the actual legal face-to-face people that you need to deal with. Everybody else is just there to support you. They can't do it for you. They can't register for you. You have to do it yourself. So yeah, in Queensland, the home education unit, they are brilliant. They are still a workplace with individual personalities. So take that with a grain of salt. But yeah, they're great because that's what they do. You know?
And is that where parents would be able to find these support groups, you know, somebody like yourself or these other families where there's that support and you can meet up and,
you know, the best place for finding those sorts of like the support groups that either Facebook groups or the face-to-face groups or any of that kind of support is probably the Educating Parent website, where Beverly Payne has published a directory and she's listed every single group. And she's listed how to register for homeschooling in your state or territory for every different place. I don't bother creating a lot of content for my website because she's already done it, and I don't see the point reinventing the wheel. So the Educating Parent is the place. And
I'm going to pop the link for that in the group, everyone.
And her daughter April, who's now home educating her 3 children. So Beverly Payne home educated her children in the 80s and 90s, and then her children have gone on to become parents and they're home educating. So so now she's a grandmother who's home educating. She takes her grandchildren off to meet up groups and things as well. So her website is a treasure trove of resources, activity ideas, booklets that she sells really cheap, but all the materials there for free anyway on the website if you can read it, if you just want to sit down and read it all. She has a directory of suppliers for every possible thing you can think of to use for your children. Different
and is
groups.
This April?
April Jeremy now runs her publishing company where they publish booklets, and the 3 of us actually got together and published a series which is really cheap. It's only $10 a book. It pays for the printing basically. So I'm promoting it without thinking, I'm not making money out of this. It's how to actually become an educating parent, how to actually de-school yourself and get into the process of observing your children and write a plan and how to make records. So there's 3 workbooks in the series, and that's available through Always Learning Books. And that's there's links for that on the Educating Parent website as well.
Great. So everyone, I will pop all of these links in the comments there.
It was so fun to do it. It's so fun to make these booklets. We're like, what should we ask parents to do? We should do, no, if they do that, that's going to take them an extra week to do that, or an extra year to do that. No, just cut to the chase. Let's just do this. And it was really, it was a really pleasant experience. From Beverly has such a wealth of knowledge of the history of home education. So when I would say something over the last 16 years, I'd say something and say, what about blah? And she goes, well, we did that about 25 years ago, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, okay. Don't need to reinvent that wheel then.
Okay.
She met John Holt, who really pushed the idea of home education in the 80s, that repopularized the idea in the first place. And they supported him to come over and do a talk to home educating parents. I'm like, oh, I missed out. So
you did. But you get to be the new person in the swing of things, creating all of these you're doing a really good job. And I know this has been really helpful for a lot of people watching so far, Tamara. This is great. And I'm just trying to make sure that I've covered everything. And I know that we've had questions around cost, right? Versus, and just on average, I don't know if there are set costs associated with distance ed versus homeschooling.
It depends on where you're
both?
booked in. So if you go through a distance educator provider, they'll have all their fees. Even if they're public, they still need to show their fees for books and materials and things like that. In general, to set up home ed or to support distance ed at home, you need a printer, you need internet access, you need a place to learn.
It's just the basics. We're not paying a registration fee to have our child on the registration list.
That's the other thing. It's really important to know. If you choose to home ed, that's it. You're out of the school system. You don't get funding, but you don't pay fees. That's free. It's on you. It's completely free, 100% free.
Great. That's good to get that clarified.
And if you're weighing up the costs of school and home ed, really think about how much extra money it costs to set up lunches that go to school compared to making your own food during the holidays. And then also the uniform, the fees, the books, the transportation, the petrol, the extra babysitting, the USH, all of the other things that go into it. There's a lot of fees. I found that it was about a quarter of the cost of using a school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you. And so just as we finish up with this has been so great, and I haven't got any other questions that have come through. I think we've really tackled most of the questions I received through just chatting with you. So is there anything else, as we finish up tomorrow, anything else that you think have we missed that's really important to know? You get all the questions all the time. You're with these mums and teachers, parents. So anything that we've missed?
There's no funding to be a home educator, but if your child can't access school for isolation reasons, either physical distance or medical reasons, there is a payment called the AIC payment, the Assistance for Isolated Children, and it's roughly $1,000 per term. So it's $4,000 a year per child, and it's for educational reasons. So it does come in handy for those that can access it, and not everyone can. But if a child can't access school for medical reasons and it's provable, and it's a simple form, simple, it's 27 pages, but the form is fairly easy to fill out. You just need a GP to fill in the medical reason. So
okay, perfect. Yeah, so that's great. And I guess in finishing up, Tamara, you know, with what we're experiencing, any final words of wisdom, hope, encouragement, clarity, anything to end on? What would you end on?
I would say we have a lot of neuroplasticity. Don't think that just because they've had a 2 year stuff up, it doesn't mean they're going to have, you know, a terrible future. I didn't actually learn to read properly until I was 11, and I've got postgrad qualifications. I've got an ACE score of 7 out of 10. You know, I've overcome quite a lot, and I certainly don't recommend the challenges I've been through. But if you're listening, it's because you want to be a good parent and you're already in the top half, you know. So as far as like the kind of support that you need to give a child in order for them to thrive, they've already got, you can cross that off your list as like, will I be enough?
It's a great point.
You're already enough. Okay, tick that off. Now it's about listening to your child. Now it's about respecting them as a human with the right to be here and right to have their own life. And what are you going to do to support them? And self-care is really important. With home education, we can get burnt out. It's really important that you take care of yourself as well. I know a lot of parents who, and I myself have done this, used a school for a year to reset themselves and reset their lives. I did that in 2008 when my daughter wanted to try school, and my son did not want to try preschool, but mummy needed that time. And we all coped and we learnt, and we, you know, and it did take a little bit to recover because it was not the best match for our family, but it was a learning experience. And I think, you know, and both of them are awesome adults. They're great. And there's so many home educating young adults that I've met who are they've been able to get on with their lives. They haven't had to wait until they're 18 before they get a say in their life. And home education gives you the opportunity as a family to make really intentional choices about how you want to live your life. And it's a lifestyle choice. And all it is really is choosing not to use a school. How you home educate as an individual, as the family themselves. Don't try to organize us. We're like herding cats. We're all different. Everybody home educates for their own reason, and each child is different. But the thing we have in common is that we're not using schools.
Yeah. Thank you. That's such a beautiful ending, and that's perfect. And I think the only last thing that we want to make everyone aware of, Tamara, is what you're involved in at the end of February. If people want more information.
Start of February. Yeah.
At the start of February.
It's
so
like
can you share?
Just
share the details on the summit and how and where people can go to get. Well, I can get the link if you let me know.
I'll give you all the links
on how to get tickets.
It's the Australian Homeschooling Summit that happens every year, and it's run by Kelly from Fearless Homeschool, who is so lovely. And it's a great cohort of home educators with lots of different experience in different areas professionally, and we all offer something different. And we're giving talks on how to cover maths, how to deal with teenage life, how to deal with emotional disturbances, how to deal with literacy, how to deal with all these sorts of things. There's so many different things. And it's really cheap. It's like, I think the tickets at the moment are only $26, and you get full access to everything, plus freebies, plus discounts, and it's lifetime access. And it's a summit that goes for 2 weeks. We have a few sessions per day, and they're recorded, so you can watch them anytime you like, rewatch anything you like. And all the past summits are available as well. I'll give you the links for those too. so that anyone who
Okay.
wants to actually go and see something now can.
Sure.
And I've got I've got some good deals, packages of a few years together as well, that I can give you links for that.
Brilliant.
And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking about, my talk is going to be on what I've learned as a teacher and a parent, like the real, like, this is my last year home educating, so I'm just going to say exactly, without any filter,
Just get it out there. That's
just
right.
get it out.
Yeah.
These are the things I've actually noticed. So that,
Perfect.
yeah.
Amazing. What dates tomorrow?
I will give you the dates.
Okay,
I'm pretty
great.
sure
I will get the dates.
Yeah. First week of
And
February.
okay, beautiful. And Tamara, you just, yes, shoot me through all the links, and everybody, I'm going to post all of the links as to what we've referred to in one giant, beautiful post in here for you all, so that you've got all the resources you need. And if any further questions come through as you watch this, put it on, post it, and, you know, yeah, we'll take a look. And if there's something that I can't answer, which, you know, there might be, considering this is not my field of expertise, then we'll be able to point you to some of those other resources, or Tamara might be able to help us out there. Yeah. But yeah, I really appreciate your time, Tamara. This is invaluable. You've really created a lot of clarity here. So thank you.
So.
Thanks for your time. Yeah. And if people want to, you know, what service do you still provide at the moment, if any? If they want to reach out to you, is that possible?
Yeah. I'm going to do the summit, and I'm also writing a book at the moment, so that when I do finish up, I'm just not going to like disappear. There'll be something there in case anyone wants to read it. So I'm writing a book at the moment, but I do education consults with parents who are coming to me with very bespoke situations, private, bespoke. I don't keep any database records. I don't have email listings or anything like that. I'm all about, let's just go in and deal with what's happening right now with your family. Let's change this dynamic so home ed works, and move on. And then if they need me again, they need me again. But most of it's got to do with registration, and we've been moving people over to the Facebook groups, where a lot of support is already there for free. And I volunteer in the Home Education New South Wales group, so I help people write their plans for registration there, and with a group of other people, because it's a repeating kind of questions. It's a repetitious sort of like, how do I start? How do I write this? What about this? Is there an activity for this? So we're in there, about half a dozen of us that have been working together for over 10 years, helping people.
Amazing. So shoot me through that link too tomorrow. Let's give the people everything today.
And I'll give you a link to the biggest, it's just gone over 26,000 people, the Educating Parent Homeschooling Unschooling group, which Beverly runs, is the biggest one. That's the one where, like, it's national, it covers everything, and from there you can shoot off through everywhere. But like I said, Beverly Payne's website has got the directory for all of the groups, and instructions on how to register and everything. So
perfect. And I'll post those. So as we finish up, thank you all for being here and watching, and I hope it's been useful. It's certainly been enlightening for me. And yeah, keep a lookout for all of those links. And Tamara, just thank you again. It's been great having you here. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just answer any questions in text, and I'll send it. Or if you want me to private message your response, feel free to private message as well.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks so much, Tamara. Bye. Bye, everyone.